Hey guys, today we're going to go through all of my pickups for August 2023. First, we'll start out with an accessory that ever since last month when I picked up Psychonauts, I want to get this accessory because I'm not playing the game any other way, as well as like a bunch of other games of similar nature on the PS1. And this accessory, it's the PlayStation mouse, the official mouse that Sony themselves made for it. You can get like third-party made mouses for the PS1, but I want the official one from Sony themselves. This is a complete in box, so one where right now this is just the outer box. I have like everything else like off on the side somewhere, but it's got the original mouse pad, the mouse itself, obviously, as well as like all of the cardboard and bag inserts that this came with originally. So quite cool to get that, and can't wait to play through Psychonauts and any other PS1 related mouse support game. All right, next thing, this is my very first 32X game. I'm kind of glad that it's this one, given that it's a fan favorite of mine. It's Doom. This was a launch title for the 32X, and the one thing that's kind of funny about it, it's the only 32X game in the system's library where if you look at the spine, you'll see the 32X logo. It's inverted. It's supposed to be flipped the other way, just for some reason. This is the only game that messed that up, which it was a launch title, so they probably just didn't know how it was going to look on the spine. But yeah, fun fact on the 32X, if you guys didn't know. But this port of Doom, it's not the best, truth be told. There are better versions of Doom out there, but this is still pretty cheap in complete in box. This is still pretty cheap to get. And since there's not a lot of 32X games out there, it's a very small library that inevitably that I'll get everything for it. And a cool one to start the whole collection off. All right, this is pretty cool to get. Whoops, dropped something. Yep, this first thing, this is a PS5 game. This comes from Signature Edition Games. I was holding out on picking this game up physically for the longest time because I wanted like all DLC to come out for it and for it to all be on the disc. And glad that I held out for that. And the game, it is Dead Cells Return to Castle Wolf, Castlevania Edition from Signature Edition Games. So this is a limited edition that it is like a PAL version, but that's where Signature Edition Games is based out of. But yep, it's Dead Cells with all the DLC up to the most recent Castlevania crossover DLC that they've done. And man, they've done such a good job with this game over the years that it is just filled with so much content. It's highly replayable. That yeah, I love this game a lot. It's so much fun. A cool thing that they did with the Castlevania case for like this in particular, if you open it up, if you look in the inside, the artwork, it's similar to the PAL box art of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It can be hard to see there, but you can definitely make it out. Like that is that's the box art that Symphony of the Night uses in PAL territories of that really sick looking artwork of Alucard. So yeah, quite cool to get this and been having a lot of fun with the game. All right, excuse me, dropped one thing. All right, this next game, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection. This is a massive collection of so many TMNT games that I don't remember all of them offhand, but basically think of like all of the original games back on like the NES, Super Nintendo, I think Genesis as well. Like they've jammed packed so many of them onto this release that's quite cool to get it. All right, next game, pretty cool one to get. This is from Limited Run Games, Shantae and the Seven Sirens. I got a standard copy of it as well as the limited edition of it for the PS5. I am like keeping up to date on any like way forward limited run releases on the PS5, especially for Shantae, since you know this IP. Whenever there is like a physical release, they tend to get very expensive. So want to make sure for like every entry in the series, I at least have a physical release of it. But the reason I'm double dipping though with a standard and a limited edition is if you guys know, Limited Run is releasing a 20th anniversary Shantae figure that if you get the limited edition of all of the Shantae games on PS5, they come with a standee, and you can put those into the statue to have like a pretty sick looking figure of Shantae, as well as references to all five of her games. Can't wait for the new GBA release, or really call that release. That game was supposed to come out, how many years ago, and it just couldn't because nobody was willing to publish it, given just Shantae the Game Boy Color was a huge failure. But that's so cool that is getting released, and you bet I am definitely going to get the Game Boy Advance version when that first goes up on Limited Run's site. All right, we have a PS1 long box, and really cool to get this one. It's Doom. I don't remember if this was a launch title for the PS1, or at least it would have came out in the system's first year on the market. But really cool to finally get this. I've been wanting to get this PS1 long box game for a long time. I mean, it's Doom at the same time. I love Doom so much. And this is a pretty unique version of Doom. It includes all the episodes of Doom 1, but they really changed the tone of the game because, for like all prior versions and like recent ports, they have like that blood pumping music that this game was really well known for. They replaced it with a very dark and gritty soundtrack. It's really good music. I do enjoy listening to it, but it really changed the tone where id Software was really trying to push the series to being more of an action horror focused games, and that really showed when Doom 3 came out because that was mostly horror that they put into it. Well, they were like going that direction with the series like years ago when when this came out on the PS1. There is mods you can get for the PC version of Doom that implements all of the unique features that this version has, as well as the music into like GZ Doom or like whatever build of Doom you're using on PC. So yeah, pretty cool release to get. Overall, it's in fantastic condition. So glad to finally get this. Okay, next up we have another PS1 game. It's Wild Arms 2. This was the last Wild Arms game that I had to get on the PS1, and now I'm just missing Wild Arms Altered Code F and 4 on the PS2. And once I get both of those, I'll have every game in the series. Okay, we got one PS3 game. This is one that I wanted to get for some time and finally got till now. It's The Saboteur. This was a game that made by Pandemic Studios. From what I've heard, like they were a very well-known and well-respected game developer that EA inevitably shut down. But this is basically like a noir Grand Theft Auto game, from what it looks like. I do remember one of my friends highly recommending this years ago, and finally getting it. So do look forward to playing this. Okay, a few PSP games. First one being Hot Shots Golf Open T2. Uh, if I recall, I only need no, no, I do have yeah. At this point, I have like every single Hot Shots Golf slash Everybody's Golf game, which we'll see another one coming up here. But yeah, this is one of the last few that I had to get, so I'm quite glad to get that. And the other one is Castlevania: The Dracula X Chronicles. This release has basically from the ground up remakes of Castlevania Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night. Fans are mixed on whether they like this style or not compared to like the original pixelated versions of those games. I haven't played through it yet, but from like what I've looked into it, like it looks good in my opinion. It's just a nice new take on like those games that I'm not gonna say it outright replaces the original pixel art ones, but they still look, they're still look really really fun to play. It's Castlevania. You can never go wrong with this series, except for maybe Castlevania 2. But do look forward to like playing through the versions of those games. Not only now that I have played through Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night for the original versions, now it's cool to well, inevitably I'll go through this release. One interesting thing, I think you have to play through like the base games in this release, and you'll be able to unlock the original versions of both Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night. So, really cool bonus that they put in this release. So you have best of both worlds. Next one, this is a sealed PS2 game. It's Rogue Galaxy. I was amazed for how cheap this was in the store that I found it in locally around my area. And because, it's a PS2 RPG game, you would probably expect games like those to have a lot of value, but Rogue Galaxy is still a really cheap game of all things considered. But I think I'm going to keep this sealed, and whenever I want to like play the game, I'll probably buy like a loose disc copy of it, because then I'll rip that to my PC and put it onto my modded system using OPL if I ever do want to play it. All right, stack of PS3 games. First one being Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, I believe. The 2 or 1, I can't remember which one this is. I've not played any Ninja Gaiden game. It's a series that I've known about for a very, very long time, but hey, a lot of the games are still pretty affordable, and they do look a lot of fun, so yeah, I look forward to playing this series inevitably. Okay, next game is Tales of Symphonia Chronicles. This release has two games. It includes a remastered version of Tales of Symphonia and Tales of Symphonia: Dawn of the New World. Symphonia originally was a GameCube release, and it has since been like ported to many, many systems over the years. And what's really sad, like almost every time they do port Symphonia, it keeps getting worse and worse in terms of like the quality of the port. Like it did come out on the PS4 and current systems recently, and that's the worst version of Symphonia. Like it has horrid frame rate glitches galore. It's really sad to say, like, how is it that the GameCube version it runs at 60 FPS, but like all later versions on more powerful hardware, the game doesn't run at that frame rate? That is really, really sad, Bandai Namco. But and the next game, Dawn of the New World, I think this was a Wii game originally. Is I do have it on my shelf. I think that's how it originally came out, and they inevitably just ported it to the PS3. So cool to go and get that. This next game, and wanted to get this for some time, and now it finally showed up for a good price. It's No More Heroes, Heroes Paradise. I believe this is a remake or a remastered port of No More Heroes on the Wii. I think it's just like the first game. I could be wrong on that. Keep in mind, but I've not played the series at all. I've known it for a very long time, but I've never just like dived into it. But nonetheless, cool to get that. All right. Now here's another game of the series I was talking about earlier. Hot Shots Golf Out of Bounds. This was the only physical released Hot Shots Golf game that we got on the PS3. The other one we did get, it was a World Invitational, which originally that was a Vita game, and I think later on they ported it to the PS3 digitally in the States at least. So for a while, this was the only one we had on the system, and it's still a lot of fun. I always recommend any Hot Shots Golf slash Everybody's Golf game on any PlayStation system. It's the only golf games that I actually like playing. And normally I despise all sports games, but Hot Shots Golf is pretty fun. So is Rocket League too. All right, next game, South Park: The Stick of Truth. Known about this game for a while. I've had it on PC, but I have not like sat down and play it because I'm not that big of a fan of South Park. Truth be told, there's a lot of like clips from the series that they're just downright funny if you're into the type of humor that South Park is, just very, very dark humor. But I just haven't like had the time to just like sit down or like really get the interest to play this. But nothing but great reviews, great reception that this game has gotten, which is really awesome given South Park's previous video games they've had on like the PlayStation N64, which were not good games at all. So really cool that they got, of all things, an RPG game and turned out to be amazing. Right, finally cool to get this version of this game, Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition. So Gold Edition, it includes all of the DLC that Resident Evil 5 had after like it first came out, including all the additional content for the Mercenaries mode, as well as the Desperate Escape and the best DLC that RE5 got was the Lost in Nightmares DLC, the one moment where Resident Evil 5 actually turned into a real Resident Evil game for a lot of people. But nonetheless, I still enjoy playing Resident Evil 5 as is. Just it's really weird and not a true Resident Evil game, but it's still a lot of fun to play though. That even if you're a fan of the series, do suggest that you try it out though. Just have realistic expectations that it's not like the older games prior to it, but nonetheless, really cool to finally get this version of it. All right. Now, before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to viewers that have still been watching through this video so far. You are about like it's nearly 16 minutes into this video so far. So just wanted to give a shout out to all those still watching up to this point, and to let you know I do plan on doing some live streaming on the 21st. That's when the Separate Ways for the Resident Evil 4 remake is coming out, and I am so playing that when it comes out. I do plan on streaming that. Possibly be around like 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested in seeing that, want to come hang out, hey, I'll be streaming around that time. I will make a community post when that time comes around, though. But yeah, stick around if you want to see the stream, and if you're still like watching and you're a new viewer, consider subscribing if you are a fan of this type of content. And I do have future projects coming out for like discussion videos and like live streams, as I mentioned as well. So if you're interested, please consider subscribing, liking this, and sharing with your friends. Your secret code, it is 1645. Sound that off in the comments if you're still watching and not just skipping through timestamps to quickly get through the video. Right, next game we have WarioWare Smooth Moves. I believe this was a launch title for the Wii, and my god, I remember when I first played this, I had so much fun with this game. It made me a huge fan of the WarioWare games in general. That this still stands out as like one of the best in the series, probably the best still, but you can still get this game really, really cheap, as most Wii games tend to be these days. So yeah, absolutely get this. It's so much fun still. Right, another Wii game, we got Mad World. This was a very well-known third-party release on the Wii, but it still like just sold horribly because like nobody wanted to buy stuff for the Wii. This is like most people like didn't care about this game, but it's still a really, really cheap game to get, thankfully. The presentation of this game is pretty unique, that it's all in black and white, and I think it's probably like a comic style game, and it's really action heavy, like it's a hack and slash game. Yeah, very unique game, not just for the system, but a unique game in general for its presentation, so highly recommend that you try it out if you're into hack and slash games. Next game, Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two. This was a sequel to the original Epic Mickey that did get a very good reception. I don't know if this one did. I think like other versions of this game was more negatively received compared to the Wii version. It makes sense because the original was like a Wii game and was really built with the Wii in mind. I do want to try this out though, inevitably, because like the first game was so much fun. So yeah, glad to get that. And speaking of, we also got the first Epic Mickey. I did play this years ago, but I still don't know like what happened to my copy of it, so just wanted to get it back. These are still like both really, really cheap games, as most stuff is for the Wii, hence why it's a really good time to start buying stuff for it. Right, next game. This was like included for free along with like other stuff that I got at the store that I got these from, and this one, it's Tomb Raider Anniversary. I'm a big fan of Tomb Raider. Pretty much love like almost every entry except for what was it, Angel of Darkness and Chronicles was meh. But for the most part, almost all the games are really, really good. Anniversary, it's in some regards is a very good remake of the first game. I don't think this is the best version to play. I'd say like the PC version or the PS2 version would probably be best, or the PS3 360 version and like the compilation release. That's the best way to play it. But if you have the option to play the PC version, do that instead. But still very very good game if you're a fan of Uncharted games with adventure platforming and occasionally some action, then this would definitely be up your alley. Quick time events though, there's plenty in this game though, but hey, you'll get over them. They're really really easy. Next game we have is Real Heroes Firefighter. This is a first person shooter firefighter game. I have a big soft spot for games that like this because at first glance you would think like there doesn't seem to be much to this game. It all seems like really like this is something worth your time. Believe me, it is. You gotta play it for yourself, and it's just so much fun just going through room to room, just putting out fires in the first person shooter with your hose. And I know this game in particular, it has been ported to recent systems, so it's not just only a Wii game, it is on other platforms if you're at all interested in this game. Right. Next game we have is Astro Boy, the video game. This is a shmup game and a really, really good one at that too. Um, was seeing this game popping up on a lot of like hidden gems on the Wii, and I can see why because it is like a really well made shmup game. So yeah, glad to have go on and go ahead and get that. All right, and the last Wii game. This was one that I've been wanting to get for some time. Was just never satisfied with the price until now that I saw it come up for a good deal. Sin and Punishment Star Successor. This is a sequel to the Japan exclusive Sin and Punishment N64 game. We still have not gotten the like that original game, at least like in a physical matter. It is on the Switch's online expansion pack with the N64 games if you want to like have a worse experience playing it on there. But nonetheless, it's still a very, very fun game to play, and I'm glad to finally get the Wii version. They're basically rail shooters that you're like flying through an area and you're aiming your reticle for like these alien, like sick looking alien species, and the boss fights and the designs of all the enemies are so cool looking that yeah, it's so much fun. If you're into rail shooters, I can't recommend Sin and Punishment enough. All right, last few stacks, a bunch of PS4 games once again because it's still just super super cheap to buy games for this system. So I'm now capitalizing on that before a lot of these get more expensive over time. So the first game we have is Darksiders 3. From what I understand, this title was kind of a letdown compared to the previous Darksiders games, given how good those games were, but nonetheless, still want to get it because it still seemed like a pretty good game to play, though. Next game, ooh, kind of a controversial title this was, but it still can get enjoyment out of this. It's Ukulele. This game infamously was a Kickstarter project, and it was made by some of the original creators of Banjo-Kazooie, so, ex Rareware developers before they got bought out by Microsoft. Honestly, it's very mixed, truth be told. The level design, it's okay. There's like the world's just very like bland looking. There's nothing special going on in them. It's like, yeah, this was a Kickstarter project. They didn't have like massive funding when they were making the game from a big publisher, but it did get published by Team 17, so they would have had some backing from them. But it was just so bland for a lot of the areas in the game. And also, personally, this is only for me. I absolutely despise the way the dialogue is, and same thing for Banjo Kazooie. Because if you have to make the characters just sound like your creepy English teacher, I'm losing all interest in those characters and just want to skip through the dialogue because them doing all the sounds is really annoying. Personally, that's just me. You guys may like that. Personally, I don't. I think it's really annoying. Nonetheless, this game was still maybe like $3 or $4, so decided to go and get it. All right, here's a better platformer compared to Ukulele, the Spyro Reignited trilogy. I did play these games originally on PC, and man, just like the Crash Insanity trilogy collection that they brought out like a year before this, if I remember. Wow, just as good as a Crash in terms of just beautiful, well done remakes of the original trilogy on the PS1. If you're a fan of platformers, and especially you're a Spyro fan, like before he got absorbed into Skylanders, absolutely pick this up. Totally worth it. Very, very well done remakes. Right. Next game is Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. I believe this was like a standalone expansion or like another like the game that came out after Dishonored 2, if I remember correctly. Dishonored is a series that the gameplay it's a the gameplay genre it falls into immersive sims. Like I love that genre so much. Like my favorite game series that that has that type of gameplay would be like System Shock, the remake, and System Shock 2 in particular, and Prey 2017. That game also was awesome. So I'm a big fan of that genre, but when I originally played Dishonored 1 back then, I just wasn't it wasn't clicking with me for some reason. But because I love praise, like come on, I should like Dishonored. So hence why that we'll see later on, like getting like the games back physically on the PS4. So to give it another chance to see if finally it'll click with me, because I feel like it really should, given that I'm a big fan of stealth games and immersive sims. All right, next game is New Super Lucky's Tale. This is kind of an interesting series. The first game was originally a Oculus Rift launch title. They then ported that with like more levels, if I remember, to the Xbox One X. That was a launch title for that system, and it was like the only title when that version of the system came out that had like noticeable enhancements for being an Xbox One X version, which honestly was really sad. But then they once again ported the game again with like more content, or I think like this is a separate game to this. And so now it's no longer an Xbox One exclusive. Now it's like a better version of it exists now on PS4, and I think this was on the Switch as well. Very, very basic 3D platformer, in all honesty. Nothing special whatsoever, but still like fun to play through. So if you see it for like less than $10, I would definitely recommend it. All right, next game. This is a limited run release. Quite cool to get this. It is Super Meat Boy Forever. I did play the original Super Meat Boy, and holy crap, that game was really, really difficult, but so much fun and satisfying to play through. I have not played the sequel yet, but hey, hopefully, inevitably, if I want to go through suffering once again whenever I'm feeling that, then definitely keep this game in mind. This next game, I was so not willing to pay more than $5 for this game, given my interest in this series has really decreased ever since the last mainline entry in this series, and given what kind of game this is, like, I don't want to spend a lot of money on what this game is at the end of the day. And it's Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. This is a rhythm game that goes through like all of the well-known music from the Kingdom Hearts series through all of its subtitles up to this point. Yeah, I was not willing to pay more than $5 for this game. Like I remember that this was stuck at like $60 for a while on the Switch, at least until they then or I think like other versions on PS4 came out when it came out. I don't remember. I'm sorry, but yeah, given this is also a rhythm game. For me, rhythm games shouldn't cost more than $40 in my opinion. But yeah, just get that off the list so I can have every other Kingdom Hearts game. I think I have every game that. No, I'm missing some on the DS, but hey, like I said, it's a series that I was like a big fan of it back then, but since 3, it has really dipped down for my interest in that series. But moving on, next game is Dishonored Definitive Edition. As I mentioned earlier, I want to give this series another chance because I really should like this game. I just don't know why for the previous times that I played it on PC, it just wasn't clicking with me for some reason. So hopefully when I do sit down and play this, hopefully I'll then start to really get into it. All right, speaking of the same series, we got Dishonored 2 Limited Edition. I think what makes this limited edition. Originally, it came with a digital copy of Dishonored Definitive Edition, but so it's basically like a codes in here that obviously already been used, and I would prefer to have a physical copy of Dishonored 1 anyways on PS4. But yeah, hopefully if I do play through Dishonored 1, probably go straight to this. I did get like funny enough, I did buy the collector's edition of this game on PC years ago. I'd never played it. Well, I still have like the key in my Steam account, but I just still have never played it. But yeah, hopefully soon I'll be able to get into this series. Okay, next game, PlayStation VR Worlds. This essentially was like the pack-in game for the PlayStation VR 1. If you bought like the more expensive bundle that came with like all the accessories you needed with Move controllers, and this game was pretty much bundled in with it. A really, really good showcase of like what you could possibly do with VR. It was just really, really cheap. It was like $3 or something. So yeah, why not? Okay, next game is Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. This is a remastered port of the original Final Fantasy XII, and they did make some very needed quality of life improvements, particularly for like the what would you call it, the grid-based upgrade system of to like learn new moves for your characters. Because from what I remember, I haven't played 12. Keep this in mind. From like the original version on the PS2, the way like they implemented of learning new stuff for your characters was not well done. That you essentially needed like a guide to like really understand how it all works. But oh, excuse me, with the Zodiac Age, with this release, they did vastly improve it. So that's good to hear. That makes it more welcoming for people who haven't played it yet. But whenever I do get to Final Fantasy 12, it'll definitely be this version. Okay, next game, pretty cool indie release that did get like a wide physical print. It is Blasphemous Deluxe Edition. This is a Metroidvania game that's more like a gothic themed, probably like more gothic themed than Castlevania. I did play this a little bit on PC when it first came out and really, really enjoyed it. I just haven't finished it yet, but I'll definitely go back and finish it with this version. Okay, next game is Darksiders War Mastered Edition. So Darksiders, I don't know if I meant, yeah, I didn't mention it with 3, but it comes up a lot when people are talking about some really, really good Zelda clones. I did play Darksiders 1 on PC like years ago. I got like halfway through, but never finished it for some reason. I mean, I can see it for like the combat, but other than that, there's barely much Zelda-like stuff in this series, unless I'm missing something from it. It has been some time since I last played it, but hey, if you're a fan of Zelda games, definitely look into Darksiders. It comes up a lot of people are recommending for games that are similar to Zelda. Okay, next game, this is Date A Live Rio Reincarnation. This is based off of an anime, which is a harem-based anime, so of course there's going to be a lot of comedy involved with this. But I don't remember the whole story of it. Clearly, it's a visual novel, like you can tell it's all anime themed, and with that cover art too, like it's going to be a visual novel harem. But from what I've seen of like clips of the anime, it does look pretty funny, of all things considered. And when I was looking up eBay listings of this game. Like it was kind of pricey for a PS4 game, but then I saw, I think it was VG Plus. I ordered this from. I don't remember exactly, but they were selling like brand new copies of it for very, very cheap compared to like even opened eBay listings. So yeah, just in case, why don't we go ahead and pick this up though? Because I know it'll be something that I'll end up playing. Okay, last stack of PS4 games. Next one, it is Doom Eternal. I did play Doom Eternal when it first came out back in, what was it, April of 2020 or May 2020, don't remember exactly, but holy crap, this game was so awesome. I played it on PC. It was like that's the best version to play of Doom, but hey, I just wanted to get a physical copy of it. God, they improved on upon everything from Doom 2016, which was already an awesome, very fun game, and but they just like went all out with Doom Eternal. You still haven't played like either game, like you are missing out if you are a huge fan of first-person shooters. That's not competitive CODs or war zones, what have you, like a real from the ground up first-person shooter that's all about a quality campaign. That's the type of first-person shooters I'm into. That's why like I'm a huge fan of Half-Life. It's like Doom and Half-Life, my most favorite first-person shooter series of all time. Okay, next game, Final Fantasy Type 0 HD Day 1 Edition. This originally came with a code that allowed you to get a demo of Final Fantasy 15 before that game came out. So people were really, really excited for that because, you know, it was how many years people were waiting for the next mainline of Final Fantasy game because, like, for most people, 13 was an absolute disappointment. Haven't played it yet, but I will eventually so I can see for myself how bad 13 is. So yeah, it was a long wait for people for the Final Fantasy series, and this like definitely like sold a lot of copies because people wanted that demo of 15. But Type Zero, it originally was a Japan exclusive PSP game for quite a while, and this release was the first time that it was ever localized. Does look pretty fun though. Haven't played it yet, but whenever I'm on a big Final Fantasy binge, this will definitely be on the list to play. Okay, this next series is a compilation, and I did play all these on a PC, and man, this is still a great series. The BioShock collection. This is a remastered collection of BioShock 1, 2, and Infinite. Yeah, BioShock, as said, this is still an amazing series. If you're a fan of video games or like want to see, you know, the potential that video games have of being a medium that deserves respect as much as like music, movies, TV shows, what have you. Like this is definitely one to play for in terms of video games looking at as like it deserves respect as those other mediums that I mentioned. The thing that kind of like annoys me is that BioShock, it's made by Ken Levine, or at least like the lead creator, Ken Levine. The previous game that he made before this was System Shock 2. It annoys me that people just rave how amazing BioShock is, which it is, don't get me wrong. But if you guys played System Shock 2, if the reasons you loved BioShock so much was all the gameplay, go back and play System Shock 2. In fact, when the Enhanced Edition comes out on consoles, hopefully soon, that still has yet to come out on PC, but when that does come out, and I'll be amazed that they actually can get that to work on consoles, because if you've played System Shock 2, you know that game is solely a keyboard and mouse game for the way the interface and the menus are. Handling it with a controller will be an absolute nightmare, but we'll wait to see how Night Dive Studios handles that. But yeah, if you're a fan of BioShock, please go and play the System Shock games. When System Shock Remake comes out on consoles, please play that. If like that's what most of you people prefer playing on consoles, then absolutely do that. But for me, I'm both worlds. But still, BioShock, still a fantastic series that you shouldn't miss out on if you love quality first-person shooter campaigns. Okay, next game, this is Dragon's Crown Pro. This is this release. It came in like this really sick steelbook case that on like the very front, like it's actually like etched out, engraved. And what's cool, inside it came with a card pack, and mine it's still sealed. And I did buy this used, and hey, the original owner did not feel the need to open up the card pack. So yeah, pretty cool to get that. If I remember this game, it is made by Vanillaware. They're the ones that made Odin's Fear, and they recently announced a new game. I don't remember the name of it, but it was during either the Nintendo Direct or the recent State of Play from PlayStation that they announce their next game. So if you're a very big fan of Vanillaware games, because their art style is unique and beautiful, I would definitely keep an eye out on that new game that they recently announced. Next game is Tales of Zestria. This is another series that so many entries in this RPG series that I've been meaning to get to because people say like this is just as good, if not better, than Final Fantasy. So whenever I have time to sit down and play this series, we'll definitely keep this in mind. Okay, next game is God Eater 2 Rage Burst. God Eater, it's very similar to a Monster Hunter where you create your character and you can have different builds with weapons that change up your play style. And say like with the monsters you go out to hunt, they're like these really awesome design creatures that they're not like dinosaur looking from a Monster Hunter. Like the designs of these is say like guess you could compare it to for like Shin Megami Tensei monsters for how completely whacked a lot of those monster designs are. That's kind of like how God Eater is. And because of that, and it's also like a anime style, like I prefer this over a Monster Hunter. Not to say that Monster Hunter's bad, but well, both are equally good. I just personally prefer God Eater because of those aspects. But next game is also God Eater 3. Believe these are the only entries in this series. We did get God Eater 1, which originally was a PSP game, if I remember, and we only got that digitally in the States. In fact, I don't know if it ever had a physical release on current platforms for the first game, but God Eater 3, we did get it physically here, and I should note both this and God Eater 2, like both of these are really, really cheap to get. So if you're a big fan of Monster Hunter, but you want like a really anime styled version of it, I would definitely recommend God Eater. This next game is Song of the Deep. The thing that interests me with this game, it is made by Insomniac Games, and I'm a huge fan of Spyro and definitely Ratchet and Clank. So of course, anything that Insomniac makes, I definitely want to go ahead and pick it up. It looks like an underwater exploration game, kind of like Abzu, but for this one, it seems like 2D based compared to Abzu, which was 3D based exploration. So yeah, pretty cool to go and get that. Okay, next game is Tales of Berseria. This Tales of game, I know this was kind of like somewhat of a departure of what the prior games were, and it was basically only like the story and the tone got really really dark with this entry from what I understand. So, and honestly, this is probably the one Tales of game I'm looking forward to most of playing just on that nature alone. The other one of like similar like hype of me looking forward to would probably be Symphonia because Symphonia is the one that seems like most people who experience for their first entry into the series, and if not the in recent years, that's probably Tales of Arise, the latest entry in the series. Which, by the way, that game did get an announcement that it's getting a new DLC expansions to it. That I think that was announced during the State of Play that happened recently. Okay, next game is Resident Evil 3. So this is the remake, or in quotations, remake of Resident Evil 3. I did play this when it first came out on PC, and I'm not gonna say I wasn't like hyped for it because after being burned multiple times throughout years, like ever since like Batman Arkham Knight on PC specifically, because I bought that when it first came out, and like have realistic expectations, don't get hyped for games, and plus like I have so much stuff to play through anyways. I'm not dying to play anything that has yet to come out except maybe for FF7 Rebirth, but no, nonetheless, back on track. Resident Evil 3 remake, even for someone who hasn't played through all of the original RE3 Nemesis, this still was disappointing. I instantly noticed like they definitely cut out a lot of content from this game. If you are comparing it to all the stuff that was in the original game, they cut out so much stuff from this game in terms of like areas you could explore or just the amount of content you could unlock was just so lackluster in this game. And also Nemesis, like I fully believe that Tyrant 103 from Resident Evil 2, he is way more cooler and scarier than Nemesis. Just most people never experienced Tyrant from RE2 back then because there's a good chunk of people who never even got to Disc 2 or Scenario B, so they never knew that Tyrant was a thing until the remake of Resident Evil 2. So most people would think Nemesis was the original, like menacing stalker monster that the series like held in high regard. But in my opinion, Nemesis, he's always been like all talk but no substance, and man, did they really did him dirty in this remake. There's so many instances, and it's really annoying because this trope happens so often in this where it's like, Nemesis, why didn't you just kill her right there? It's so many chances you could have just murdered her right there, but you didn't because the plot calls for it, of course. But Resident Evil 3 remake, as it is, if you don't compare it to the original game and keep have like realistic expectations, it's still fine. Just it did not hold up at all of the quality or the experience that was Resident Evil 2 remake. But you're still a Resident Evil fan, still play it though, but don't expect to be mind blown from it. I'll just say that. Okay, next game, Mega Man Legacy Collection 2. This has a Mega Man 7, 8, 9, and 10. I did play the first Legacy Collection. I have yet to play through this set. I'm a huge fan of Mega Man. I really love this series, so definitely look forward to playing these eventually. I do look into getting every single Legacy Collection of a Mega Man that we have also gotten the X collection and the Zero ZX collection, which those are originally Game Boy Advance games, if I remember. And then finally and we also got the Battle Network games, which no joke, even for like $60 for that collection is a sick deal given how expensive all the Battle Network games are on the Game Boy Advance and the DS. I think some came out on that system as well. And then the last Mega Man collection that we need is just the Star Force games. And I believe that is the worst performing Mega Man series, except for Legend. In fact, I hope we get a Legends collection as well. Is Oh my god, that would be awesome. But yeah, I'm definitely glad, Capcom is doing these collections for Mega Man because, good God, so many of the original versions of the games, especially like the X games on the Super Nintendo, really X1 is the cheapest, but all the X games are just so expensive and until you get to like the PS2 games, like yeah, those are all cheap, but most of them are just so expensive. And for like X3 and 4, they did get like PS1 and Sega Saturn releases, but of course those are extremely expensive. So Mega Man is just a very expensive series overall for like the original copies of most of his games, but the games themselves still like 2D action platforming perfection though at the end of the day. All right, last three games. These are all some heavy hitter PS4 games. The first one is Shadow Complex Remastered. This originally, I think, was a 360 digital exclusive, and it did get like a remastered version that had been ported to current systems. It's basically a Metroidvania game where you play as this guy, I don't remember his name, but he is voiced by Nolan North. We would know him for voicing Nathan Drake in the Uncharted games. And very, very well done Metroidvania that you basically discover like this enemy base and you just gotta like explore areas. You find stuff to unlock more areas you couldn't go into earlier. It is like a 2D based Metroidvania, which, in my opinion, is the best kind of Metroidvania game. But yeah, definitely play this game. If you're a fan of Metroidvanias, definitely don't miss out on this. This is a really, really well done one. And this is one of the more valuable limited run releases for the PS4. I just saw it come up for a very, very good deal. And I don't have it with me, but oh yeah, right here. It also came with the soundtrack when I picked it up, and it is sealed, so got more bang for my buck for when I picked this whole thing up. But yeah, Shadow Complex for you. Very, very good game. Highly recommend it. It doesn't go on sale often on the PSN store, but whatever like its base price is, like $20 on PSN store or any other platform, like totally worth it still. All right, next game, it is Atelier Lulua, the Xian of Arland. This game, it is the last game in the Arlen Atelier trilogy, which consists of four games, and this being the fourth entry, as mentioned. Particularly the PS4 version of this game, just for some reason, is very, very rare. I almost never see more than like three copies, two or three copies showing up on eBay. It finally showed up for like a decent enough price that I decided to finally pick it up. 'Cause this is a series that, for more I look into it, it looks really, really good. And this is my first Atelier game as well that I picked up physically, at least. So tends to be a trend that happens with me whenever I pick up physical versions of RPG games, or just ones that are part of like a series that is like a set of like multiple games. Like for some reason, the first one I always get is always the most expensive. In case in point, like Dot Hack Quarantine on the PS2, that was the first one I got in that original quadrilogy. All right, the last game here. I've known about this game before it came out. I was looking to get it on a launch day. I was gonna pre-order it, but was gonna wait for reviews before I did put down money for it. But then, like, reviews were coming out for it, and people were just dogging on this game. Like, to me, this is still one of the worst games on the PS4, and it's still a very, very bad game. Just for some reason, this is now like the most expensive game on the PS4 in terms of just a normal retail release game. Nothing where it's like a limited run, or like, hey, we're only printing 100 copies of this from some website or indie studio online, which is, there's so many of them out there these days for current systems. But yeah, this is the most expensive game on the PS4 that had a normal retail release, and it's Godzilla. Godzilla 2015, as most people refer to this as. So yeah, I'm not kidding. This game sucks. I'm sorry for all those Godzilla fans out there, which I myself, I'm a huge diehard Godzilla fan. I love Godzilla so much. Just the kaiju franchise overall, massive fan of it. Oh my god, this game is awful. Like like Angry Joe did a review of this, and I agree with everything he says. This game is downright terrible, but it's still a Godzilla game, and it does a good job of like giving you fan service of kaiju's overall. Because the monster designs, they do look good in the game. It's probably the only good thing about the game, truth be told, is the monster designs. Everything else is just so awful. The mission designers are doing the same exact thing over and over again, destroying generators, which, by the way, fun fact, if you know about the game, the woman who voices the generator woman, she is the same woman that voices Makoto in Persona 5. Let that sink in. But yeah, for a long time, like I knew about this game and I was gonna pick it up, but never did because of it turned out to be complete garbage, and I was not gonna pay more than $5 for this. But as mentioned, this is now the most expensive game on the PS4 for a normal release. It fetches around like $180 nowadays, because the reason why is because it's Godzilla. There's definitely going to be a license associated with it from Toho in this case, and just when this game released in North America, it was, I think, in like 2018, Bandai Namco lost the license or the rights to sell this, so it was pulled from digital stores, and any physical copies, they were recalled as well. But because that people knew how bad this game was, nobody bought it anyways. Until when it got pulled, people then wanted to buy it all of a sudden, so yeah, it's cool to finally get this, I suppose. I paid $40 for this, which I still think is way too much for this game because it's so bad. but nonetheless, it's cool to own as a Godzilla fan, and the artwork kind of looks pretty cool right there. It's very reminiscent of the original Gojira movie. So whenever I have like my Gojira or Kaiju shrine, let's call it that, this will definitely be a nice centerpiece for it, you could say. So yeah, that is everything, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. So please share this video, comment down below what your favorite thing was or stuff that you guys recently got, and do subscribe for more content like this in the future. Until then, guys, I'll see you next time.